Alexis Patterson walked to school on May 3, 2002, but she never made it into the building. Her school didn't notify her parents of the 7-year-old's absence, so no one knew she was missing until school let out that afternoon. Her frantic parents, Ayanna and LaRon Bourgeois, called Milwaukee Police and a search began. But despite being only 7 years old, Alexis was treated as a runaway. It would be over a week before police publicly said that they suspected foul play in her disappearance. As the days turned into months, which turned into years, the hope of finding Alexis alive diminished for many, but not for her mother. She believes that her daughter is out there somewhere, and in 2016, it seemed that she was proven right when an Ohio man came to her and said that he knew Alexis. In fact, he had been married to her. When a person goes missing, there's a special kind of pain in the not knowing. I want to tell you the stories of those who never came home. Today, I want to tell you the story of Alexis Patterson. I'm Kona Gallagher.
And I'm Ethan Flick.
And this is And Then They Were Gone. Thank you for joining us, either right after part 1 if you're on Patreon, or a week after. We are in the future right now. So this one is going to be a doozy.
Let me just buckle in here.
Yes, please do. If you're just joining us, this is the second part of a 2-part episode on the 2002 disappearance of Milwaukee 7-year-old Alexis Patterson. So if you haven't listened to part 1, please go back and do so. In the first episode, we covered the circumstances of her disappearance, possible leads, and the investigation. In this episode, we're going to jump ahead to about 10 years after Alexis's disappearance and kind of pick up the investigation there, and then get into 2016, which is when a major bombshell was dropped on this cold case. So, honestly, I read a few news stories from the time about this whole thing in 2016, this, Ohio man who came forward, and it didn't actually seem all that crazy just based on a couple of news stories. I thought we would just add it into the episode as a weird thing that kind of happened.
Just to make me crazy?
Yeah, I guess. I really did not think that it was that. I don't want to say I didn't think it was a big deal, because yes, anytime you have somebody who's been missing for, over a decade and somebody says, oh wait, no, she's alive. And I know her. Yes, that is a big deal. But I just didn't think it was going to turn into this whole thing that it did, because like I said, the news stories just didn't treat it that way. But then, my friends, I found a Facebook thread. I found a Facebook thread with over 1,000 comments. And I sat at my desk and I read every single one of them. I clicked on every single link. I looked at all the photos. And basically, there is a lot more to this than the news articles would lead you to believe. So my question to all of you when I get to the end of this whole crazy story is, how much of it do you think is true? I really want to hear from people on this, because I don't even know. I've been reading so much into it, I don't even know what I think anymore. So let's now continue the story of Alexis Patterson.
All right, let's get into this.
All right. When we left off, Alexis's family was upset because they felt as though police were spending too much time looking into them and not enough time looking into possible kidnappers outside of the family. I mean, if you recall, Alexis was spotted talking to some random woman twice outside of school in the week leading up to her disappearance. And 2 weeks prior to her disappearance, there was an actual attempted abduction of a little boy by a man outside of the school. So, like, there are things going on in this neighborhood that seemingly were relevant to this, or at least possibly relevant, needed to be looked into. We'll say that.
Yeah, and there was also the red Chevy.
Yeah, exactly. This red Chevy SUV that had been creeping around the school and was never seen again after Alexis's disappearance. They're upset about that, the police response, and then they were also fighting for media coverage in a country that was dominated by the kidnapping of Elizabeth Smart, a white girl out of Utah. We talked about race and socioeconomic status being two of the big reasons why Elizabeth's case seemed to receive so much more media attention and law enforcement response. But there are a few other factors that certainly went into it as well. We talked in the last episode about how asinine it was for police to have considered Alexis a runaway, given, again, all these abduction, potential, abductions, and given the fact that she was 7 years old. But in their defense, when Ayanna called 911 that afternoon, she and LaRon actually did think that might be an option. And they said that to police, not that she ran away with the intention of staying away, but that she was mad at them. And maybe she had decided to skip school and hide out somewhere.
That's fine. I don't care if the cops think she's a runaway, if their parents think that she ran away. My issue is the response that you get when you have a child that goes missing versus a runaway are drastically different from law enforcement. And it shouldn't be the case. I don't care if they ran away or if there was an abduction or whatever. A missing child is a missing child. You should investigate them both equally. And if the runaway comes back in an hour, then you wasted an hour. Who cares? But you start investigating it the same way. I've said it before on this podcast, and I'll say it a million times.
Yeah.
A runaway child should not be treated as just they'll come back. Because what if they don't?
Also, she's 7.
Yes.
Come on.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter. She's 7.
Now, look, again, I get an adult going out on their own, obviously,
that's tougher.
That's different,
yeah.
But you have a child that is missing. Runaway or not, find them. Don't just wait for them to come back.
So that first day, because her parents are kind of saying this and, they just have this general idea about children being missing, being okay. I don't know. They didn't treat it as this huge emergency initially. But again, they should have switched that mindset, I think, much sooner than they actually did,
Yeah, given the circumstances around the school.
Yeah,
yes.
And it was literally a week or so before they said, oh, hey, we do think actually that maybe foul play was involved. It's this girl has been missing for a week. She's not living on her own happily right now.
Right, yeah. I mean, they knew there was a police report of the attempted abduction of a child from that same school.
Right. And so, okay, so you've got this, situation that is a little bit ambiguous though, right? Nobody saw her getting snatched, her parents said maybe she's hiding, maybe she was mad at us, whatever. Conversely, Elizabeth Smart was literally kidnapped in the middle of the night at gunpoint from her own bedroom as her younger sister watched, horrified. So right off the bat, that is, if you're just looking at it from a news producer's standpoint, it's a more compelling story.
Yeah, I mean, yes, okay. From the news standpoint, yes, and the one case will grab a lot more attention.
Exactly. There's more of a hook there. And plus, there was no doubt that this was 100% an emergency situation, right? her sister saw her getting snatched and drug out of her bedroom window at gunpoint. Like that's not ambiguous, even though Elizabeth Smart was 14, which is like much more of a quote unquote runaway age than 7. But again, dragged out by gunpoint, middle of the night. Makes sense. So, that led police to act much quicker in her situation. But Elizabeth had another thing going for her. She lived in Utah. Now, in 2002, when all of this happened, Amber Alerts were still a year away from being implemented and 3 years away from being implemented in all 50 states. However, Utah had something similar at the time called a Rachel Alert. And this allowed for Elizabeth's information to get disseminated very quickly, similar to an Amber Alert. At the time, though, Wisconsin didn't have anything like this in place. So it took days for anyone outside of Alexis's neighborhood to know that the little girl was missing. And again, like reporters didn't know about it till Monday. Like nobody knew about this until Monday or Tuesday. And that is forever when you're talking about a missing 7-year-old. Now, I kind of alluded to this in the last episode, but Alexis's family's relationship with the police was pretty fractured, after her disappearance, just based on the whole way that the investigation was handled. But by the 10th anniversary in 2012, people come, people go. Like some of the same people were still there. Some new people were there. So even though this had been relegated as a cold case back in 2009, police did decide to take a new look into the case and also try to repair the relationship with the family. That year, they re-interviewed between 60 and 65 people connected to the case and went through the 10,000 pages of notes and evidence. Unfortunately, there weren't any huge revelations that came from this effort. That wouldn't happen until 2016. In July of 2016, a man named Joshua Miller from Bryan, Ohio, contacted Milwaukee investigators and said that he believed that his ex-wife was Alexis Patterson.
All right, so are you going to start showing me pictures, side-by-side comparisons?
I am.
All right,
but I'm going to tell you about it first. According to Josh, he and his ex-wife, Lisa, were married in 2009 and had one son together. At the beginning of their relationship, he had never heard of Alexis. They lived in Ohio. He did not know who Alexis Patterson was. But he said that Lisa's background always seemed a little off to him. He claimed that she couldn't remember anything before the age of 10. In addition, when they were going to get married, they had to jump through a lot of hoops because Lisa didn't have a birth certificate. Now, according to her and her family, Lisa was born in Belize. And Lisa told Joshua that her mother and her stepfather had brought her to the U.S. about 12 years prior. So at this point, it would have been when she was around 10 or 11 years old. He said that they had to, quote, purchase a birth certificate from Belize before they could marry.
all right,
So shady.
for sure.
I don't know what's going on here, but it's a little weird. So Josh had suspicions about Lisa's family, but he doesn't specify in, the interviews that he's done, what exactly those suspicions were. He just thought that the whole situation was kind of weird. And I also don't know how he was initially led to Alexis Patterson, where she came into all of this. But all this did happen right after he and Lisa were already divorced. At some point, he learned about Alexis and saw her picture or her missing poster or whatever on the internet and became convinced that she was actually Lisa.
Reward money.
Yes, but one of the other things, going back real quick to Elizabeth Smart versus Alexis is that, yes, there is reward money, but it was like, in Alexis' case, it was like $10,000 or something. Whereas Elizabeth Smart, it was like $200,000. So, yeah, I mean, there is reward money, but I mean, we're not talking insane. Like there are, I feel like, easier ways to get 10 grand. I mean, I'm not turning my nose up at $10,000. I'm just saying like, it wasn't that huge of a reward.
I'm just trying to come up with reasons why this person would come up with this story.
Yeah, I don't know. According to Josh, the first thing he noticed was just the striking physical resemblance between the two. So Lisa doesn't want her photo out there. And this is how it's different from the Brittany Williams case, because in that case, it was the actual person who came forward and said, hey, I'm Brittany Williams. Whereas in this case, it's the ex-husband who, you know, is saying somebody else is her. So Lisa does not like want her photo out there. So I won't be posting photos of her on the blog or, you know, anything like that, just to respect her privacy. Neither am I giving her last name. It's all fairly easy to find. But again, I'm just not going to directly put it out there like that. But of course, I'm going to show you because you're like Mr. Face Guy. And so I want to get your take on it.
I don't think I've ever been called Mr. Face Guy.
That's definitely my name for you. And it's interesting. Like, actually, I don't want to, you know, I was going to give you my opinion on it, but I'm not going to because I'd rather you just look at it. So,
okay.
All right, let me show you.
Right. So what's the age difference? 20 years? 7 to 27?
Yeah. Well, no, at this time, this was 2016. So this would have been more like 15 years.
Okay.
Give or take.
No. It's not her. The nose bridge is completely different. Cheekbones are higher on Lisa. Shape of the eye is different. Doesn't look like her.
So that's kind of what I thought too. Like, honestly, I saw that picture and I was like, it's not super compelling to me. Not like the Britney case. Like that to me, like really looked like her.
Lisa's also missing the scar under the eye.
Oh, so she's
at least in this picture.
In that picture, she's actually not.
Okay.
So that's one of the things, and we'll get into that.
Show me the next one.
Yeah, so here's the next one. And this is a picture of Alexis, I think, when she was a little bit younger.
Yeah, it's still not her. The shape of the mouth is different. Again, Lisa has higher cheekbones. That's not something that changes with age. Again, nose bridge is different. I don't think that's her.
All right, hold on. Let me see what I've got next. Okay, so this next picture is Lisa in the top left, Kenya, Alexis's biological father, in the top right, and then Ayanna at the bottom. If this is Alexis, it would be her biological parents, but it's a picture of Lisa. All right.
Okay. I mean, that doesn't tell me anything. It doesn't tell me much of anything at all. I mean, I can see the resemblance to the previous pictures of Alexis in both of the parents. But again, going to Lisa, even looking at both of the parents, the mouths are different. The nose bridge is different, you know, to both parents, not just to the picture of Alexis.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's her.
All right, hold on. Let me see what else I've got. Okay, so this is another post that somebody made with like several different side-by-sides. And maybe like a face morph at some point. I don't even know. There's a lot going on here, but take a look at that.
Yeah, I mean, what the hell am I looking at? It looks like I'm looking at manipulated pictures.
Yeah, so I think like this like third one here is like an overlay of the two of them, trying to say like their face is the same. You can overlay Alexis's on Lisa's or vice versa, and you know they have the same mouth. And
okay, but they don't.
Okay.
The shape of the mouth is completely different. I mean,
they say they even have the same like gap between the teeth.
I mean, there's barely a gap there.
I mean, it's not a huge gap.
I mean, you know how many people in the world have a gap between their front teeth?
Yes, I know.
A slight one like that too.
Yeah.
The shape of the mouth is different. When Alexis smiles, her mouth turns down. When Lisa smiles, her mouth turns up. That does not change with age. Smiles like that don't change because that revolves around the shape of the jawline, the structure of the bone structure underneath. The cheekbones are different. It's not the same person.
All right. So the only other thing I'm going to show you is a picture of Lisa with her daughter, and then scroll, and then it's a picture of Ayanna. Just again, we're talking like family resemblance and whatnot. So there's Lisa, her daughter.
Sure. I mean, yeah. Okay. Lisa and Lisa's daughter look like they're related. Cool. Again, neither one of them look like Alexis. And no, I don't see any resemblance at all between Ayanna.
You don't?
And Lisa and Lisa's daughter. Nope. No, I'm sorry. Those are. I'm not convinced at all.
Okay. All right.
I was way more convinced with the last case.
No, I know with Brittany, because those pictures, like that, really, really looks like her.
Here, I think it's a stretch.
Yeah. So I actually did tend to agree. You know, which again is another reason why I wasn't even planning on making a big deal about this in the episode.
Yet here we are. Going back to the Brittany Williams case, like those two people, they had similar characteristics, including like the mole on the neck and stuff like that, right? Like weird things like that. Lisa and Alexis also share distinctive physical characteristics. Now, I know you said you didn't see it in that photo, but they do actually both have a scar under their eye. They both have a mole above their eyelid, and this mole, Ayanna also has, and like her other daughter also has. It's like something that runs in Ayanna's family, basically. And they both have the same bump on their pinky finger. And were you going to show me another picture proving this, or
no? But this is something that like everybody does seem to pretty much agree on, like that those things like are actually on both of these people, right? And Josh says, you know, that they even do have matching birthmarks, I believe, on her leg.
Okay, well, so none of that was evident in the pictures.
Well, correct.
Did not see the scar at all.
On any of
Lisa's pictures. You know, okay, a mole in the same place. You know, I mean, moles happen on people. Bump on a pinky.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, Denzel Washington has a bump on his pinky.
Well, but that's the thing. I think the point is that, okay, yeah, any one of those things isn't super compelling, but all of them is. And, you know,
sure, it's all compelling, but you go down to the basics of facial construction. Like, look at the two people side by side. Your bone structure, yes, while it gets larger, overall, the shape of your face is not going to change. Your smile stays the same because it's based on the bone structure of your body. So cheekbones, your jawline, all of that. As you get older, yes, you get older, you lose like the child fat or whatever you want to call it.
Baby fat?
Baby fat, yeah.
Child fat sounds so creepy.
Child fat. But you lose that, so your face, you know, becomes more defined, but the bone structure is still there.
Yeah.
So nothing else changes. So unless Lisa had a nose job.
Not to my knowledge.
Well, that's not her then.
So, okay.
I guess I am a face guy.
I guess, see, this is why I said you're Mr. Face Guy. All right. So Josh told WTMJ4 in Milwaukee, quote, "I didn't even speak to the mother until there were 3 things, not just what everybody else could have. Anyone could have a scar under their eye and anyone could have a bump on their hand, but those 2 and the birthmark, then you put pictures together, the resemblance, I don't know," end quote.
Yeah, he don't know because they don't look alike.
So in June of 2016, Josh decided to take a chance and contact Ayanna. And, that's what he said. But then, again, this is the same in the Brittany Williams case. Then there was a reporter that was like, we showed a picture to Ayanna and got them in contact and blah, blah, blah. But regardless, they connected in the summer of 2016. And, they spoke on the phone and it was a positive conversation. And so Josh decided to take his son, whom he shares with Lisa, to Milwaukee to meet her. As soon as he met Ayanna, Josh was absolutely convinced that he was correct and that she was his son's grandmother.
Now we're talking about traumatizing the next generation? Is that what's happening here?
I mean...
Go ahead.
He said that he was happy. So he said...
Oh, he said that he was happy. Hey, this is your real grandma, even though mommy doesn't believe it. And I'm delusional because your mom doesn't look anything like this woman.
Yeah. So he said that when his son met Ayanna, it was, quote, like he knew her his whole life and the kids his whole life. Like it was meant to be. My son has never been happier in the 6 years he has been alive, end quote.
His son was never happier in the 6 years he was alive.
I know, it's not a
says a lot about you as a parent.
Yeah,
dude.
really not a great endorsement, honestly.
I don't care whether you include that. But what the fuck?
Yeah, I don't know. The next question to me is, what does Lisa have to say about all of this?
Probably nothing if she doesn't want her image in the news.
Right.
She's probably like, nah, that's not me. Because look at the pictures. Again, doesn't look anything like me. No? Am I?
No, I mean, yeah, you're correct. I don't think she said all of that, but she just said, no, that is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Police in Bryan, Ohio, where she lives, coordinated with Milwaukee Police to go pay Lisa a visit. Now, she was cooperative, but adamant that her ex-husband had it wrong. She provided them with documents proving her identity and gave them a DNA sample. Okay, you're looking at me, but interestingly, Captain Chris Chappa of the Bryan, Ohio Police Department told reporters that the documents she provided were a visa, a passport, and divorce documents. Which, okay, cool, that's great. But if you had a fake birth certificate, I feel like you could get all of those documents fairly easily.
Yeah.
I just don't think that proves anything. It proves that she's going by this name. That doesn't prove to me that she is that person.
Sure, but if you opened your eyes and looked at the fucking pictures, then that would also prove that it's not her.
Okay, I'm just saying the documents weren't very compelling to me.
Okay, you're right. However, what other documents, quote unquote, could you actually provide that would prove otherwise? If somebody asks you your identity, what are you going to provide to them? A driver's license that you got using a birth certificate, right?
Yeah.
Maybe a passport that you got using a driver's license that you needed a birth certificate for.
Yeah.
I mean, what other documents?
Right, but she didn't even have a birth certificate until she was 21. I mean, I'm just saying, I don't know. I'm just saying it's all a little weird.
I get it, but how many birth certificates for Cooper do we have upstairs? How many birth certificates for you do we have upstairs because your name was spelled wrong?
No. My name was spelled wrong on Cooper's. My name's fine on my own.
But your birth certificate is from Hawaii, and as we all know,
fake.
Thanks, Obama.
Fake as hell.
It's
Fake as hell. And honestly, listen, not to get political, obviously the birther thing is completely false, but as I told you...
That was a joke.
As I told you, I kind of get it because those birth certificates do look fake as hell. I showed you mine and you're like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah, because, first off, Hawaii, it's handwritten.
It does not look official.
I have 2 birth certificates. I've got my original one that I thought I lost. Mm-hmm. And then I requested one a second one, and I got one.
Right.
I didn't have to provide any proof of who I was. I just requested it.
Yeah.
It's not hard to get a fucking birth certificate, legitimate or otherwise.
Right. So that's what I'm saying, is that like any of these documents do not prove to me anything.
Correct. So all of the value placed in all of these documents across the entire United States is all bullshit.
Right.
Because it can very easily be forged.
Right.
Because
So
in order to get any of those identifying documents, all you need is a birth certificate, and birth certificates are super easy to fake. It's super easy to get legitimately under false pretenses.
yeah, I mean, hopefully not as easy anymore, but like, again, who knows? Beyond that, there was a bigger reason that skeptics claimed that this woman could not be Alexis.
Because they looked at the pictures?
And because Lisa is 7 years older than Alexis.
Oh. Is that right?
So for her to actually be Alexis, she wouldn't have been 21 when she married Josh. She would have been 14.
What is the age according to?
Her birth certificates and whatnot. So exactly, that's what I'm saying. You know, I don't know, but they're saying 7 years older, and so like she would have been 14 when she married Josh. And what's more is Lisa already had a child before she and Josh got together, so she would have had to have given birth to that child when she was like 11.
Not outside of the realm of possibilities.
No, absolutely not. But
way more difficult and
right.
Yeah.
It's not super likely.
Correct.
Right. But yeah, absolutely not impossible. That's the other thing. So if you're kidnapping a child and you're changing their identity, like, yes, it does make sense that you change their birthday and fudge it by...
Yeah, but not 7 years.
Exactly. And when they're already only 7 years old. Like you can't...
change it by a couple of months or something.
Yeah, or even a year. Like you don't do 7. Like that does not work at all.
You're 14.
Right?
You're 14. You're just a late bloomer.
Yeah, like it doesn't work. So anyway, you can speculate about the documents and the age and everything all you want, but what it really comes down to...
The DNA test.
Exactly. As I mentioned, Lisa did cooperate with police and gave them a DNA sample. And Ayanna gave a sample. As you may have guessed, you know, based on the fact that we're talking about this, and this isn't like some world-renowned story about this like girl who was found after 20 years, the DNA test came back and showed that there was no match. I didn't think they looked that much alike. Then, you know, the article. So there were basically 2 articles, right? You know, in many different outlets, but it was 2 articles. Article 1 is dude from Ohio says that his ex-wife is Alexis Patterson. DNA test is happening. Article 2, DNA test comes back. Dude from Ohio's ex-wife is not Alexis Patterson. And then that's it. Like no more stories.
As well it should have been.
Right. Well, so of course, after the DNA tests come back, though, you know, the
internet conspiracies go off the chain.
No. Before that,
okay.
Before that, like that second article, you know, they talked to Ayanna and they talked to Josh, like obviously, right? According to an interview that Ayanna gave, when police told her that the results came back from the Wisconsin Regional Crime Lab and they weren't a match, she was confused. Not only because when she looked at Lisa, she truly believed that she was her lost daughter, but she was also confused because she had just given police her DNA sample the day before.
The day before the article?
Yeah, the day before the police came and told her that it wasn't a match.
Is she sure she didn't give her DNA sample like during the initial investigation?
Well, so that's the thing. So she asked them, she's like, I just gave you my sample yesterday. Like, what are you talking about? It's not a match. Like, there's no way you could have tested this. And they're like, well, correct. We didn't test that sample. We used a toothbrush that we had collected during the initial investigation 14 years ago. This stunned Ayanna. First of all, like, she had no memory of police ever collecting a toothbrush or anything from her house, but that could simply be explained by the fact that, like, she had a lot going on.
For sure.
And wouldn't necessarily remember that, right? And, you know, they never had any DNA to compare anything against. So, like, I wouldn't have really come up in the interceding 14 years, you know?
Right.
So, like, I think it's very easy to believe that they did, in fact, collect a toothbrush and she just did not know or remember or whatever.
Right. And I know that they may have said that they were testing it against DNA that they collected from the toothbrush. They didn't say when they collected the DNA sample from the toothbrush. So they could have, like, collected her DNA from the toothbrush and put it in CODIS. Because, again, we're not talking about
1976. So it was 2002.
Right.
Yeah.
So CODIS was a thing. They could have collected the DNA sample, put it in CODIS, and said, okay, if there's any breaks in this case,
It's
one way
here,
or the
right.
other, the DNA is here. We can just compare it later.
Yeah.
Which is probably what they did.
One would hope, right? I mean,
honestly, like, that would be a rock solid way to investigate this. It's like, this case has been going on for a few years. It's getting to the cold case point. Let's collect this DNA from this toothbrush that we have, however they obtained it.
mm-hmm.
Put that DNA sample into CODIS, and it's there. It's a database. It's there forever. Something to compare to for future cold case detectives to look into.
Yeah, so that's the thing. You're right. I mean, so they did say that the DNA that they tested Lisa's against came from this toothbrush that was collected during the initial investigation. They never specified publicly
when it was actually tested.
Exactly.
Right.
So, yeah. So I do not know the answer to that. But Ayanna's issue with that is that, you know, because she didn't really even know that this toothbrush was, like, collected or, you know, whatever. She's like, I don't even know if that's actually Alexis's toothbrush. Like, they had other people living in the house. Like, what if they had gotten the wrong toothbrush? Like, what if they had accidentally taken Yoni's toothbrush, right? Because Yoni was not biologically related to Alexis at all. Theoretically, it could have been Yoni's toothbrush. It could have even been LaRon's toothbrush. Like, there were people living in that house.
But were they saying that this toothbrush that they collected was Alexis's or
Yes, they were saying that it was Alexis's. Ayanna's point is, she's like, I don't know that that's actually the case. What if they grabbed the wrong toothbrush from my house?
That's fair. I was going under the assumption that that this was Ayanna's toothbrush or Ayanna's DNA.
No. This was what they say is Alexis's DNA from her toothbrush from the initial investigation, which would be great if it is actually Alexis's toothbrush.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think that it is reasonable for Ayanna to doubt that because, again, you know, whether if it's because she just forgot about it in the stress or if she never knew it was collected or whatever, like, to me, there would be that doubt in my mind. Like, is that actually her toothbrush? Is that actually her DNA? So Ayanna's point was like, okay, glad you did that. Get it. However, I've got questions. I've got concerns. I also literally just gave you my DNA yesterday. How about you take that and test it against Lisa's and see if there's a familial match there?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. I would agree with that on several levels because, as we know from our household,
oh my God, yes.
Toothbrushes are not kept track of.
No, like, straight up, we have 3 kids.
Yes.
And literally,
I think
they don't know which toothbrushes are theirs.
I'm pretty sure that our youngest has claimed every toothbrush in this fucking house.
Yeah.
Same thing with a hairbrush. You can't even trust what hair is coming out of the hairbrush because they all grab a hairbrush and whatever's there is what they use.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like hair follicles, is that like the same thing?
Exactly.
You wouldn't know.
No, you would have no idea. And so that's
But
why
you can test the familial DNA.
Exactly. And so that's why Ayanna's like, hi, you have my DNA. I just gave it to you. Like, run the test again, please. Like, I'll leave you alone. Just run the test again because this is like leaving too many doubts in my mind.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
But police did not agree with that. They did not feel like that was a reasonable request. Now, Ayanna had previously said that if the DNA test came back and showed that Lisa was not a match, that, it would be difficult, but she would move on. But, she did change her tune after this because she just didn't feel that the results could be trusted.
Well, it's enough to leave doubt.
Exactly. And like, I'm sorry, when it's been at this point 14, 15 years of running through every single possible scenario in your mind, like you don't need more doubt.
And while I was joking about the pictures,
yeah,
taking it from a desperate mother's perspective, she's grasping for something.
Yes. I completely empathize with her and I understand where she's coming from. And I don't think she's being unreasonable with her request.
Just retest her DNA.
Yeah. Josh also agreed. So he thought that the DNA test was faulty as well. And from his perspective, he thinks that Lisa doesn't want to admit that she's Alexis because she's afraid of the people she knows as her current family.
Afraid of them in what way? That there's going to be retaliation, or afraid that she's going to have to face the possibility of her actually being Alexis?
I don't think so much retaliation, but like, let's say she is actually Alexis, and that means she was kidnapped by her family. And, that leads you down some dark paths. And again, we're going to get into that a little bit more when we talk about the actual conspiracy here.
Okay.
Now, for her part, Lisa seems to believe that her ex-husband is just stirring up trouble. When all of this was happening in the summer of 2016, they were actually going through a custody battle over their son. She also said that, people who read about the case on the internet were like coming to her house, and she was afraid for her and her children's lives. She didn't ask for any of this. She said, though, that, she only agreed to be involved at all and to give this DNA sample basically so people would leave her alone.
Or they could just look at the pictures.
And because, quote, I feel sorry for that family that lost their daughter. I would do the same thing, right? Like if somebody came to me and they're like, hey, I think you're this like missing person from 20 years ago. I'd be like, yeah, here, take my DNA, like whatever. I know I'm not, but like if it'll make you feel better, fucking take it. I don't care. Now, Ayanna was convinced before the test that this was her daughter, and she still believed it after the test, saying to the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, quote, no matter what the test says, I still believe 1 billion% you are my child, end quote. Though, she also did feel badly about how upsetting this experience was for Lisa, right? Because, keep in mind, we talked about this in the first episode, like the media scrutiny and all of the shit everybody was saying about her and to her and everything was so bad that like she and LaRon moved, just to an undisclosed location just a few months after Alexis's disappearance. So she knows what it's like to like be thrust into the public against your will and, to have all these people after you. And she did like genuinely feel bad about that. She said, quote, I want you to continue to go on with your life and be as happy as you can be and be the best mother you can possibly be and raise your children and don't let no one hurt your kids. Don't let your children out of your sight. I know you're hurting right now and I am sorry, end quote. Whatever Ayanna and Josh believed, the Milwaukee police consider the matter closed once the DNA test came back.
It's also financial on the police end.
Yeah, no, I get it. Like DNA tests are expensive.
Yeah. And it's ridiculous that law enforcement entities have to pay to have DNA tests.
Right.
Because it is expensive and it does come out of police budgets.
Right.
And it fucking shouldn't.
No.
It's absurd that police departments have to pay for this.
Right.
So if there were money or funds or some agreement with LabCorp or whoever's running the tests where they could run many DNA samples, a lot of cases, not just missing persons cases, but
Right.
like so many cases could be solved because it's all about money.
Yeah. And I mean, things are moving in that direction, right? Because, you know, there are a lot of states that had these insane backlogs of rape kits, for instance, right?
Yeah.
And it was just budgetary reasons. The jurisdictions couldn't afford to get them tested.
And you legitimately, you can't blame the police in that aspect.
Yeah.
Because like how are if they don't have the fucking money, they don't have the money.
Right. What are they supposed to do? And so then, you know, so legislation has been put forward, you know, like on the state level in a lot of places to give that funding, you know, that's outside of the normal police budget to get those
specifically for running DNA tests.
So like we're getting there for sure.
Yeah.
But what I would say to that in this particular case is that, you know, Milwaukee, I don't know what their whole budget is, but it is again a big city. But this is also one of the highest profile cases that they've had, especially in terms of a missing person case. To me, and this is maybe like my marketing PR background versus your police background, but the value of good PR when they could find the money. Flint, Michigan can't find the money. Milwaukee, I think, could find the money. Being able to show the press and the public and the family and everybody that they are doing everything they can, that this is being thoroughly investigated, that they are on the family side, that they are going down every avenue when they have been criticized at this point during, you know, for 15 years now, for 2 decades of botching this investigation. I feel like you find the money just to make yourselves look good, if nothing else.
This was 2016.
Yeah.
Think about what else was happening in 2016.
Okay, yeah, it wasn't a great time.
So doing this,
yeah,
I mean, probably pretty low on the priority list.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair.
It all comes, it's all political appointees. It's all political. What was going on in 2016, in particular in Milwaukee.
Yeah.
Around that same, St. Louis, Milwaukee, all of those cities, like they were dealing with a whole lot of other shit.
No, and that's very true. Right. So this DNA test comes back. Milwaukee police are like, listen, this whole thing with this lady in Ohio, like, we're done with it. It's over. We don't care. Not only that, though, when Ayanna pushed the issue, you know, as you can imagine she would do, the cold case detective who had recently been assigned to Alexis's case, he had only been assigned to it like a year before, and he and Ayanna had only spoken like once or twice. He made it clear that he thought that she and or LaRon were involved in their daughter's disappearance.
Did this cold case detective get that information from the old PI that thought
yeah, maybe who
thought that fucking aliens were landing?
She told me secrets through her hugs.
Yeah.
No, dude, I don't know, but you know, regardless, like at this point, we're 15 years in, and Ayanna has been dealing with this long enough, so she's not playing with these cops. Like, she doesn't trust him. She's not dealing with it, and so she, at this point, is recording everything.
Good.
Yeah. And again, like, I don't want to, you know, this was reported in a newspaper, so I don't think I'm getting her in trouble. I don't know if like Wisconsin is like a 1 or 2 party consent state. Doesn't matter. We'll just assume she's on the up and doing this. But regardless, so she recorded this conversation and played it for a reporter. So like this has been verified.
I mean, playing it for a reporter might be the illegal part, but that's fine.
Well, all right. Anyway, so she called the cold case detective and asked him to redo the DNA test with her DNA, like we were talking about. And he responded, quote, "If I went to Ohio and swabbed Lisa's mouth myself, if I do that, if I bring it back here and it's not a match, will you tell me what really happened? End quote.
Don't show your bias at all.
Right? Like, fuck off, dude. Like, I mean, really.
Way to be an open-minded detective.
Like, you just got on this case. This is like your second or third conversation with the mother of this missing child, and you're going to come at her like that?
So clearly, whoever was initially on the case was writing notes, directing them in a certain direction.
I mean, I guess. I have no idea. There were
Right.
10,000 pages.
So, like, I get during the course of an investigation, you kind of have to come up with a theory, right?
Right. And you have to start with the parents.
Based on the evidence, right? You know? But every time a case gets transferred, the new detective should be looking at the evidence, not the notes.
Right.
I mean, yeah, you have to read the notes.
I mean, yeah, you look at the notes.
You have to read the notes, but like you have to look at the evidence with new eyes.
Right.
With fresh eyes and not biased based on previous detectives.
Yeah, and that's what they said they did in 2012, but I don't think this particular detective was involved in all that. So I don't know, but yeah, like that is like he was coming in hot. Like, will you tell me what really happened?
Like super aggressive.
And it's like, really? You think she's asking you to retest the fucking DNA? If like, I mean,
okay, here's the other thing. If she knows something, or if she was involved in some way, she got away with it.
Yeah, no shit. Like, shut up, right?
Right.
And she did the opposite.
Right. That to me says she wasn't involved, or if she was loosely involved and is not telling you some minor fucking detail, like shit didn't pan out the way she wanted and she still wants her daughter to be found.
Yeah.
So start investigating and stop pointing the finger at her or her ex-husband.
Right. Who also stayed very active and involved. Not to the extent that she did as the years went on.
Hey.
But yes.
Here's a message to the fucking dumb cops that are listening to this. Like,
so many of your coworkers listen to this.
I luckily don't work in that field where this would ever become an issue. But like, legitimately, if you have somebody still pushing on cases like this is not the same thing as a murder suspect hovering around.
Right. The crime inserting himself into the investigation.
That is not the same thing.
The arsonist watching the fire.
Yes. Like, parents or anybody that's involved in a child abduction or selling a child to a sex ring or something like that, they're not going to continue for 20 years.
20 fucking
pushing
years.
The cops to try and find the suspect. If they're the fucking suspect, you morons, they already got away with it.
Yeah.
Like come on. Stop it. If they're continuing to push and they're saying like, look, put the bias aside, ignore the notes from the previous detective, open your fucking eyes and look at the case brand new.
Yeah, it's that, but okay, so it gets, I don't know, worse or like as bad. I don't even know how to like quantify these things anymore. But after she strikes out with the cold case detective, she tried the FBI and got basically the exact same response. Interestingly, though, this FBI agent that she talked to told her that she failed her first polygraph test, which was not at all the case based on everything that everybody has said for the past 20 years. Right. And like, why would the police lie about that? Say she passed when she didn't? Like, I don't understand that. But, so yeah. So like there has been no indication for, I guess, not 20 years at this point, 16 years, 15 years, whatever it was. No indication that she had failed her polygraph test, but this FBI agent was like, oh yeah, you totally failed it. And so she's like, what are you talking about? And he wanted her to take another polygraph before he would help her.
No. Polygraphs are bullshit.
Right. And he was like, well, this is common in investigations like this. And it was funny because I was reading about this in a newspaper article, and the reporter did a very good job. He was like, well, and that's not even true, because like the current standards say like, yeah, you go over like previously taken polygraphs, and like you can take that into account, and like, you whatever.
You don't administer new ones.
But yeah, you don't do new ones.
Why? Because a million fucking times the courts have found them inadmissible.
Right.
So what does that get you? You do a polygraph, right? And where do you go from there? You're going to go to the suspect and say you failed your polygraph, and they're going to be like, oh, so what?
Yeah. Well, so this is what he was saying would happen, right? All right. Now, because again, she recorded this call too. And according to that, this agent said that if she took another polygraph and passed it, quote, with flying colors, then nobody has a second thought about doing whatever we need to do. It's a win-win for you, because if you pass it, then you can tell anybody you want, look, I passed this polygraph. If you don't have to tell anybody. There's no court case that you'd be wrapped up in, end quote.
What the fuck does that mean?
I don't know, but like it's much longer than, okay, we'll just test the fucking DNA. Like, like Jesus. Yeah, like that made my head explode. Like, and this is exactly though what I was saying in the Brittany Williams case. If you don't want conspiracy theories to grow, stop creating these situations in which they flourish. Like, it's been 15 years at this point. Test the DNA. Release more information to the public, because like they have nothing to use. Yet these men just stay here overcomplicating things for no reason.
I don't know what he meant by that.
I don't know either.
I mean, like if he's insinuating that she has knowledge of her daughter's whereabouts, and somehow a polygraph is going to exonerate her from that, test the DNA, which is admissible in court.
Right.
And then you can present your theories to a prosecutor if you want to bring charges. The polygraph doesn't do anything for you at all.
She had a simple request, which is, I gave my DNA. Lisa gave her DNA. Can we please just test them against each other and not this like weird toothbrush from 14 years ago?
Right.
And these two different men from two different agencies are like, take a polygraph. Herbity boobity boo. Like, why? Like, why are you complicating this? Like, what does that have to do with anything?
I mean, the only thing that I can think is that they still think that her or her ex-husband are the main suspects.
Well, right. And they do. But again, like,
polygraph doesn't prove anything.
Right.
Doesn't prove anything.
It doesn't. And like, it still has nothing to do with whether or not you think they're suspects. Still test the DNA. Like, what is that?
Here's something else that testing the DNA would do.
What?
It's familial DNA. So, you could test that against other Jane Does.
Yeah, exactly. Listen, all I know is that at this point,
none of this makes any fucking sense.
None of it does.
From a investigative perspective, unless they're just like fucking blowing smoke up her ass because they don't want to actually do anything on her case.
Right. But like, I don't know. It's exhausting. All I can hope is that Ayanna and like every single member of her family has gotten 23andMe tests done and like uploaded all to GEDmatch. Like, I don't know. But regardless, this whole thing was ridiculous. And so Ayanna's on the phone with the FBI agent. He's telling her all of this like absolute nonsense. And she's got nothing to hide, but she also is like, you're full of shit and I don't trust you. So she says, okay, sure. I'll take another polygraph test if you want me to, since I failed the first one. but why don't you show me this first one that I failed? Do you think that he showed her the first one that she
No,
failed?
he can't. Yeah. He can't reproduce it because I'm sure they didn't actually keep evidence of it or documentation of it.
Yeah, or it never fucking existed in the first place because she passed like the Milwaukee Police said she did in 2002. Like, what is he trying to pull here? So that died. So that's it. So like Milwaukee Police, FBI, nobody's going to test her DNA against Lisa's. So Ayanna's reaction to this whole mess with the police and the FBI really sums up the entire investigation for the past 20 years, both in how she was treated and how her daughter was. She said, quote, "I feel like it's because of me being African American. I didn't finish high school. I'm from the hood. They probably did my background. You know, my mom was on drugs. My daddy wasn't around. They wouldn't have never treated me this way if I was white." End quote. And like, I can already hear you like typing the negative Apple Podcast reviews as we speak, but they didn't do this shit to the Smarts. They're not doing it to Michael Vaughn's family in Idaho right now as we speak. Like, do they only 100% do this with black people? Like, no, of course they don't. Like, cops are shitty to everybody. I think we've proven that. But her point stands. It absolutely played a part in how this entire thing has been handled for the past 20 years.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, listen to our entire catalog of podcasts and you'll get that. Like, you know, I understand we are how many episodes?
Dude, this is like 87 or something.
Yeah, so we've got to be around 80 cases then.
Yeah, give or take, yeah.
I understand there's a lot of missing persons cases out there, but like you got around 80 cases here as a sampling.
Right.
How many times have we brought this up?
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. You know, like as I'm writing this, I've noticed, especially in this season, because this is our third season, right? And, you know, we have like a good chunk of cases behind us. I feel like every single time I'm writing about a new case, I'm mentioning other cases.
The same things.
Because it's like this just comes up over and over again. And it's not just this issue. It's like all of these issues, right? There are fucking patterns.
Yes.
In all of these cases.
Yeah.
Like none of these cases, when it comes down to it, are all that different. It doesn't matter like where they are, what agencies are involved,
right.
You know.
It's not the circumstances of how they went missing.
No.
It's the reaction of law enforcement after they go missing that really matters in the case.
Yeah. It's like every time I'm writing one of these, I'm just dealing with deja vu half the time. Because I'm like, I've done this before. Like we've been here. I've talked about this. This has happened. This is just so much like the Brittany Williams case and in the whole DNA aspect of it, but like also just again, yeah, how people are treated when they're not like rich and white and or high profile or whatever. It's just wild. And one interesting thing, and we're going really long, but one interesting thing that I didn't really write about that came up is like, you know, so a lot of articles when they were talking about the disparity in how these cases are treated, they're like, okay, but like, where does it really come from? Like, what's the root of it? I mean, other than like, just like obvious like racism or whatever. But what's interesting is like, so a lot of news agencies, when asked about this, got very defensive, as you can imagine, right? And I think it was like a producer for MSNBC who like snapped at the person who was asking, you know, like, why did you cover Elizabeth Smart's case and not Alexis's? And she's like, well, did Alexis get, you know, like stolen from a bedroom in the middle of the night at gunpoint? With the point being, again, like I said, that Elizabeth Smart's case, yeah, it has a hook. It's more compelling, right? Valid from it. Like, I get that.
Sure.
But they think a lot of what it comes down to is actually that media response is shaped, and not just in missing persons cases, is shaped so heavily by what information police decide to put out there. Now, a big problem that we've seen that we've, I mean, I'm sure we've been seeing it for like hundreds of years, but we've noticed in recent years is that when police incidents happen, like violence happens, like you're talking George Floyd, things like that, right? Where police, even Uvalde, police put out their version of what happened and reporters just transcribe it. They don't ask follow-up questions. They don't dig. They're just like, the police said it. This is true. This is fact. This is what happened. It gets put out there, right? With no critical thought behind it whatsoever. And then, sometimes that's just what the narrative stays forever. Other times, like in Uvalde, we do learn that like, oh, this was bullshit. It was fake, whatever. But with the missing persons cases in particular, what we find is that the media ends up caring, in quotes, about the information that they can get, right? They have to get the information somewhere. And one of the things that a lot of media outlets complained about in this case, in Alexis's case in particular, is that they would call the Milwaukee Police and say, hey, we want to do a story on Alexis Patterson. They wouldn't talk to them. They wouldn't give them any information. They wouldn't give them anything to go on. And they were not actively trying to get publicity for this case, right? And so at a certain point, the realities of the news business are they're under deadline. There are a million stories to cover. And if you're just running into a brick wall, eventually you've got to make a turn and go to another story. And Good Morning America was one where one of the producers was interviewed and they're like, listen, we tried to cover the story. Nobody would tell us anything. So we kind of flipped it and used it as a jumping off point to talk about the general issues of missing children and whatever. Right. And so that's the thing. So it's police agencies kind of set the narrative and then it goes from there. And so police agencies don't put it forth as something that needs to be covered, as something that's important, then it just kind of stops.
Right. But there's also the double-edged sword there, because there's a need to control the flow of information that goes public in case now don't interrupt me here. Yes. So it's to protect the validity of a case or the evidence in a case if it gets to a point where there's a homicide involved.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Or there's leverage that you could use against a suspect or whatever. However, the blanket do not talk to the press in a missing persons case in particular, and even to some extent in a homicide case. Right. That needs to stop, because the reality is, especially nowadays, is that the media can be used, and I say media, not just news outlets, any form of media, social media, can be used in your cases. I have been involved, and I have gone to court. And I'm not in a position where I go to court a lot, as you know, but I have been involved in cases where social media was used and it bolstered my case.
Right.
So, and I mean, I'm not going to spell it out here. You know what I do for a living. So if my agency can fucking do that, I don't understand why any other police agency can't figure out the usefulness of social media in general, putting information out there and getting things back. Is it going to be a flood of information? Yeah, of course it's going to be a fucking flood of information. But you know what? That's your fucking job to sort through that information.
Literally, if you put it out there and tell people to care about it, they'll just care about it. I mean, it's really that simple. You just have to get it out there and say, hey, guys, this is something that you need to care about. And people will go oh, yeah, it is. Okay. Real off on a tangent there. But getting, back to it and, this FBI agent and cold case detective, like basically telling Ayanna that she and LaRon are still suspects, like I agree with it to a point. Like what I do agree with is that what current Milwaukee Police Chief Jeffrey Norman, or at least he was the chief at this time in 2016, said that to his knowledge, there hasn't been any conclusive evidence that has cleared anyone. So like,
That's
yes,
fair.
that is fair. Like
Sure.
I that makes sense to me that technically LaRon and Ayanna are still suspects. Like that's fine. But that does not mean that you harass her and treat her with the disrespect that they treated her with. Like that's two different things to me.
Yeah, and again, you have her DNA. If she's a suspect, you have her DNA.
Right. Just like take it, use it, like whatever. So, all right, before we move on to the conspiracy theory, because dear God, we haven't even gotten there. I just want to close out like the parent angle on this. As I told you at the end of the last episode, Ayanna and LaRon split up about a year after Alexis went missing. And, you know, it was not a pleasant divorce. Like I said, he was accused of assaulting her. Like, obviously, things went bad. And over the years, the pair went to court many times for custody issues, for child support issues related to their younger daughter. But in the past 20 years, like Ayanna seemingly never considered LaRon to be a suspect. The same, however, can't be said for David Clark, who was the Milwaukee County Sheriff at the time of Alexa's disappearance. In 2017, as the 15-year anniversary approached, reporter John Mercure, who had been covering the case since the beginning, met with Sheriff Clark and asked him if he thought that LaRon was involved. Clark said, quote, "Sure. Can I prove it? No." End quote. He believes that LaRon never walked Alexis to school that morning.
Did they interview the crossing guard?
I mean, I assume so. I mean, they interviewed teachers and whatnot. So like, yeah.
I mean,
but I mean, the theory could be like, oh, you had the wrong day, like whatever.
Well, yeah, because they didn't actually do an investigation for several days.
Exactly. Right. So
all of that's thrown out the fucking window.
Basically. Yeah. It could have been like, oh yeah, that did happen, but it was Thursday, not Friday. You know, that kind of thing. But like, okay. So did the name David Clark ring a bell for you?
It did, but I don't know why.
All right, so I will be clear on who exactly this dude is. He is that cowboy hat wearing
motherfucker,
letting inmates die of thirst in his jail, Trump supporting motherfucker. It's that guy.
All right. Yeah, I know exactly who he is.
Yep. He is a black man who in 2015 said, quote, "Let me tell you why blacks sell drugs and involve themselves in criminal behavior instead of a more socially acceptable lifestyle. Because they're uneducated, they're lazy, and they're morally bankrupt. That's why." End quote.
Wow.
Yeah. So, like, fuck that guy and fuck his opinions, basically. Like, I don't give a shit what he thinks about LaRon or any of this, honestly.
Wasn't he in Texas? Oh, I don't understand. Wait.
No, he was Milwaukee. He was the Milwaukee sheriff from like 10 or 15 years, like up until 2017. And
was it just the cowboy hat that made me think that he was a sheriff in Texas?
I actually thought he was in Arizona.
Yeah, wasn't he? So wait, he wasn't the one doing the weird like
the chain gangs?
I
feel like he was. And I thought that was somebody in Arizona.
Yeah.
I don't know though. But
is this all the same fucking person?
It might be. Listen, it might be. This guy fucking sucks. So what's crazy is that like this whole time he was sheriff in Milwaukee, he like ran as a Democrat, but was like not a Democrat, and he called Planned Parenthood planned genocide, and then, you know, said that quote that I mentioned and was just like basically the worst. And like literally people are dying in his jail. He mistreated inmates, like an absolute terrible, terrible person. And honestly, this whole quote, this whole thing doesn't really have much to do with the story at all. I just came across it and I just wanted to have an opportunity to like say, fuck that guy because he sucks. Like I really could have left this out, but he was involved in this and he just sucks so much. And I just decided to add it. So anyway, but back to LaRon, like I don't want it to sound like I'm like super, super defending him. But like I am to an extent, right? Because I did read a lot of interviews with him over the years, and the things that he said about Alexis, about the investigation, about like what he was going through, they resonated with me. Like they felt genuine. And like as a parent, I really identified with a lot that he had to say. However, like I get he was not a great dude. You know, he hit his wife. Like that is not okay. I'm not saying that he is like this perfect, great, wonderful person.
No, but what you are saying is that he probably didn't have anything to do with this particular instance.
Exactly. Like I am not dismissing or discounting the pain that he caused in his life, but my personal gut feeling is that he did not have anything to do with Alexis's disappearance.
And once again, he continued to bring it up to law enforcement and continued to pursue it publicly.
Yeah, he did.
So,
and again, you know, after he and Ayanna got divorced, he like stepped back again because things between them weren't good. So, you know, he kind of would have had to. But like he did. He kept himself out there. And even though he was being attacked from the beginning for his past, he still put himself out there, you know? Whether it was grief or other reasons, LaRon's life was not easy over the next decades after he and Ayanna split up. He had those drug arrests that I talked about, the child support issues. And, you know, as I was looking through his like court cases and everything, you know, and these child support things in I think it was 2019, he said that he couldn't pay because he was ill and bedridden for 6 months, so he couldn't work. After that, he was working as an Uber driver, but he wasn't making enough money, you know, to take care of all of his responsibilities. The drugs apparently still plagued him. He just had a lot of demons. And in January of 2021, LaRon died of a suspected drug overdose. Like the first article that I found on that was like, stepfather, last person to see Alexis Patterson alive, dies of a suspected drug overdose. It's like really, they're still really going after him as like the main suspect, basically. And, you know, after his death, tips did come into the Milwaukee Police. But it wasn't anything along the lines of like, okay, he's dead. Now I can tell you what really happened. Tips came in, but I think that's more because the case was just kind of in the news again, you know? And anytime a case is in the news, you're going to get tips. So nothing really came of those from what we've seen. And this is over a year ago at this point. May 3rd, 2022 was the 20th anniversary of Alexis Patterson's disappearance. And authorities feel as though they are no closer to finding her than they were in 2002. But Ayanna Patterson disagrees. So now we are going to end the episode with conspiracy theory time.
Wait, we're ending the episode with conspiracy? Is there going to be a third episode of this?
No. This is it. We're going to go through the conspiracy theory and that's it. So like basically, okay, if we leave out the conspiracy theory, that's where the case is. LaRon died a year ago. Police are like, I don't know. I still don't know what happened.
We're not testing DNA. We need mom to take a fucking
polygraph.
Useless polygraph.
Yeah, exactly. They're like, I don't know. Hopefully somebody will just admit to it at some point. Like that's basically what they're going on now. But, you know, Ayanna's still fighting. She's still searching. She's still doing everything she can for her daughter. So after the DNA tests came back into 2016, Ayanna and Josh gave the interviews that I've already talked about in which they both disputed the results. Then, you know, things went pretty quiet. And my thought as someone who was just reading about all of this was that like, okay, they felt that way in the heat of the moment, right? Because it's 2016. She had like met this guy, met his son. It was like, oh my God, this is my grandson. My daughter is out there. I've been right for the past 15 years, right? The test comes back and they're like, okay, there's all this doubt. Heat of the moment, don't believe it. But then you calm down, you look at it, you think, okay, well, maybe this isn't my daughter, whatever. So I assumed that everybody had kind of come to terms with the fact that even though there were these weird similarities, like the scar, the bump, the birthmark, that Lisa was not Alexis. And I can't really speak for Josh because he's been lying low. Apparently, right after this, he did release like a bunch of YouTube videos and stuff, but it's all been taken down off the internet. I couldn't find any of it at this point. I can say that like that is not true of Ayanna. So I talked about that 1,000 comment deep Facebook thread that I found, and it was a doozy. So it was from 2020. So we're talking years after the DNA test, and like no articles have been written about this, but this Facebook thread was here. So in addition to all of the random internet looky-loos on this, it was full of people from Lisa's family saying that this whole thing was nonsense. So the post was basically, Lisa is Alexis Patterson. And then the comments were like, wait, another one? Like they found another girl who they think is her. And then it's like, oh no, this is the same girl from 2016, da 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 da. Then Lisa's family came in and was like, this is all nonsense. Like we disproved this years ago. Like, why are you still even talking about this? And then Alexis's family comes on and was like, oh yeah, no, this is definitely her. Like this is our, our sister, our, cousin or whoever, right? This is Alexis. So Ayanna did not directly participate in this thread, but people took screenshots of some of her posts from the time and put them in there. In one post from January of 2020, Ayanna posted a photo of Lisa's mother and stepfather in front of a theater in Chicago. She wrote a long post that started out with, quote, "Who the hell are these sick MF people, allegedly that took my baby," end quote. She went on to name them, which I won't do here. Then later she said, quote, "Allegedly this man been human trafficking children for over 20-something years. He was a truck driver. And that's exactly what the police came and told me that they heard they see my daughter at the truck stop hours later," end quote. So like, I don't really know what to make of that. What she's thinking is that the people who raised Lisa are human traffickers, that her stepfather was a truck driver who was indicted for human trafficking. And again, I don't know if that's true, but other people did repeat this rumor that he was indicted in 2015, but I personally haven't been able to find any proof of that. That certainly doesn't mean that it was out there because I did not do an exhaustive search. So I don't know. If anybody knows more, love to hear about it. But interestingly, when Josh was interviewed back in 2016 after the DNA tests came back, he said, quote, "I feel if I can put her into safety and reunite her with her mother and keep them kids away from that man, then I will do anything in my power to do that," end quote.
That man being Lisa's supposed
Stepfather,
whatever.
I'm assuming, but like weirdly, the reporter didn't seem to ask any follow-up questions about that because like, that's a pretty interesting statement. I have questions about it. Like, what do you mean by that? Who is that man? Like, what exactly are you talking about? I don't know. But yeah, a lot of people do take that to mean her stepfather. And so Josh is saying that her stepfather is a dangerous person in some regard. And that is why, she's afraid to speak up, why, all of this is kind of happening. So after that, Ayanna's daughter, so now I'm not sure if this is the daughter she had with LaRon or like a different younger daughter, but she shared her mother's post, the one that I was talking about, and said up top, quote, "Listen, I ask that you all respect my mother. Do not comment any unnecessary things, but please get this word out. We have been fighting this for 18 years, and now we have answers and need help. Share this, please." End quote. So what she's saying is that, like, we've known that this is Alexis. We've been fighting with the authorities and everybody to make them, like, admit it, and they won't. So share this, put pressure on them. Then in another post, Ayanna posted side-by-sides of Alexis and Lisa, which I think is one of the pictures that I showed you, and posted in part, quote, "I've been waiting long enough for the police to correct their mistakes as they promised. It's been 4 long years." End quote. So I don't know. I mean, obviously we know that she thinks that the police made a mistake. I think that as they promised is interesting because everything that we've read publicly has said the opposite. But, you know, we don't know what conversation she's having with who privately. I don't know. Now, these posts, like I said, were from early 2020 and they were set to public at the time, which is how these people got screenshots. Since then, they've either been set to private or just deleted altogether. So that's less of like Ayanna's direct words in this thread, but other people took the idea of human trafficking and ran with it, claiming that Lisa's family and the whole town of Bryan, Ohio was basically a haven for trafficked children.
I mean, it's Ohio, so
I mean,
sorry if any of our listeners are in Ohio, but like we've driven through some pretty sketchy areas of Ohio.
When I was going through this thread, I'm like, okay, these people are just like bonkers, like whatever. This is just like some internet thread that got out of control. And like, frankly, I still don't believe that this is necessarily true, but I have to admit, and this might be just because my brain has turned to mush at this point, but there are some pretty compelling photos. So once this all started, Facebook sleuths started digging into Lisa's family and friends. And what they found were several people who looked like missing children. Diamond and Tiana Bradley were 10 and 3-year-old sisters who went missing from their Chicago apartment in 2001. It's actually like this insane, really disturbing case that we should probably cover sometime. But someone found people that it seems like are Lisa's sisters and compared their photos to the NCMEC age progressions of Diamond and Tiana. And like, I'm not saying they're right, but like, I do kind of get where they're coming from. So I'm going to show you the pictures real quick. Okay, so the picture I'm going to show you is 3 side-by-sides. Now it's Lisa and Alexis in the middle, but on the top is one of Lisa's sisters and Diamond Bradley, the NCMEC age progressed photo of Diamond Bradley. And then on the bottom is another one of Lisa's sisters and the age progressed photo of Diamond's sister, Tiana Bradley. So take a look. You don't think that they look alike?
The bottom two, not at all. Like, not at all.
I think the bottom two are more of a stretch, but I honestly, I could kind of see it with Diamond.
I mean, a little bit, sure. With Tiana, no, not at all.
So for Diamond and Tiana, the pictures on the left, those are just pictures of Lisa's actual sisters that were just taken like from her Facebook page.
Okay.
The pictures on the right, the top and the bottom, are the NCMEC aged progressed pictures of Diamond and Tiana. So these are not like real because the sisters were 10 and 3 when they disappeared.
Okay. Well, so like 100% not Tiana. Does not look anything like her. The bottom one. Like, not at all.
I don't know. Like, I think the nose and the smile are kind of similar.
I don't. The nose is completely different. The shape of the eyes are completely different. Like, I'm the face guy.
I know. You're the face guy.
The chin is different. It's totally not the same at all. Now, granted, this is an age progressed photo, but the chin, the shape of the chin is different. The shape of the actual cartilage of the nose is different. Eyes are different. Eyes are turned up here. Eyes are turned down there. The age progression has more of an oval shape to the eyes, where these are more angled. Like, no, not at all.
All right. But I do think that the diamond one, like that, I don't know, that does look actually If we're talking about the three of them,
I mean, sure,
including
more
Alexis
closely,
and Lisa, like I feel like that to me is like the most compelling of the three.
That is closer, yes. It's kind of hard to tell because the pictures are blurry.
Right. And again, you're looking at age progressed photos, not actual real pictures, right? So
yeah. I mean, certainly the lips look about the same, so the mouth structure is the same. Yeah, I mean that's close. That's close enough, especially given an age progressed photo.
Well, exactly. And so that's the thing. It's like, okay, on its own, maybe, I don't know, but like you kind of get it all together. Diamond and Tianda also went missing in 2002. And they were from Chicago, and the parents have a connection to Chicago, even though they've like lived in Ohio, apparently. And I don't know. It's just, it is a little interesting. I'm not saying I believe it. I just find it interesting. Now, according to a post on the site The Afro Lounge, these whole accusations about Bryan, Ohio date back to 2016 when a person belonging to the Facebook group The Whole Milwaukee created a post that included photos of children missing from Illinois, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan. So this user also did side-by-sides with some of Lisa's family and friends. Many of which I think of some of the ones that I found were actually just pulled from that originally, but the entire page was like quickly deleted. Another photo they posted was of Lisa and her sisters with a friend who looks a lot like Stacy Rudolph, which is a girl who was allegedly kidnapped by her non-custodial mother from Medford, Wisconsin in December of 2002. All right, so the picture on the right is a group photo of Lisa, her sisters, some other girl, and a friend of theirs. And the picture on the left is the friend cropped out of that photo next to an actual photo, not an age-progressed photo, of Stacy Rudolph, who went missing from Wisconsin. I think it looks a lot like her.
Well, I mean, it's hard to tell because it's
It's a black and white photo versus a color.
Fuzzy photo. And so, I mean, my initial reaction, or the initial thing that I would look for, is that the actual picture of Stacy Rudolph, she has a very distinct dimple in her chin, which I can't see in the black and white fuzzy photo. I'm going to sound redundant. Shape of the eyes are different. I mean, I'll give you it. Looks like a white girl with wet hair.
Right.
In both photos.
Yeah.
Shape of the face is similar, but again, the dimple is hard to see in the chin. The eyes are differently shaped, though. Hard to really make out cheekbones or the smile. Could be she's showing teeth in one picture and not showing teeth in the other, so that's kind of hard to gauge. But it's tough to distinguish anything from the black and white photo, though.
It is. And like I said, I don't think any of this is like, oh my goodness, definitive, whatever. But I don't know. I just feel like if you had a group picture of me and my sisters and like a friend, you wouldn't be able to find a missing child to connect each of us to. Like, it's just weird. It's weird. It's not weird. It's people pulling at straws and creating conspiracies out of nothing. Lisa is not Alexis. She's not. I'm sorry. Yeah.
It's people grasping at straws. Is there some questions about Lisa's background? Sure. But Lisa's not Alexis. She doesn't look anything like her.
So is the town of Bryan, Ohio full of kidnapped children?
I mean, probably. It's fucking Ohio.
Stop. I need to look up. I think we probably have like a lot of Ohio listeners.
Well, is Bryant next to Illyrium or whatever?
Illyria.
Yeah,
we both have family there, so that's why
it is.
Like, we're probably related, honestly.
Probably. I don't know. Because if it's next to that town, then fuck yeah, it's full of kidnapped kids
Stop.
or people on meth. Who knows?
You could tell it is like late, and we've been recording for a long time. But what I would like to know, like legitimately, is I would be very interested to know if the accusations about Lisa's stepfather are true. Like, was he indicted on human trafficking charges in 2015, or is that complete internet bullshit? Right? Like,
I mean, you found the thread on Facebook, so like it's probably complete bullshit.
It probably is, but again, I mean, I would like to know. So if anybody in Bryan, Ohio knows, like, can point me to like the right databases to look at, I'd appreciate it. May 3rd, 2022 was the 20th anniversary of Alexis's disappearance, and Ayanna still hasn't wavered in her beliefs. She hosted a private memorial for her daughter, which she called an awakening. She told reporters, quote, "I found my daughter in 2016. Lisa is my daughter," end quote. Whether she is or not, there's definitely a lot more to this story. We'd love to hear from you if you have any theories or know anything about this. But if like you have actual pertinent information about Alexis's disappearance, like please don't tell us. I mean, I'd love to listen to your theories, and if you have like tangential information about people, I'm very open to that. But like if you literally think you know don't tell me. Do not tell me. Please contact authorities directly. We have all of that information at the end of the episode and in the show notes and on our blog. Like literally, don't tell us. Ayanna isn't giving up. She hasn't given up for 20 years. She hasn't rested for 20 years. And neither should we. As she said, quote, "It's been 20 years and this is a hard fight, a hard battle. I'm not giving up ever," end quote. Alexis Patterson has been missing from Milwaukee, Wisconsin since May 3rd, 2002. She was last seen wearing a hooded red pullover nylon jacket with a gray stripe running down each sleeve, a light purple blouse or blue shirt with horizontal stripes, light blue jeans, blue and white high-top Nike sneakers, and cluster-type diamond sunflower-shaped earrings with yellow gold posts. She was carrying a pink Barbie book bag, and her hair was styled in 2 French braids, which were pulled back into a ponytail. Alexis was around 3'8" and 42 pounds at the time of her disappearance. She's a black female with brown eyes and black hair. She has a mole on her eyelid, a scar below her right eye, and a bump on her left pinky finger. Alexis was 7 years old when she went missing. She would be 27 today. If you have any information regarding the disappearance of Alexis Patterson, please call the Milwaukee Police Department at 414-935-7401. You can also contact the Milwaukee Field Office of the FBI at 414-276-4684 or the Milwaukee Police Department Cold Case Hotline at 414-935-1212. You can see all of the sources for this episode along with photos and videos at our website, andthentheywere.gone.com.
And be sure to follow us on social, and Then They Were Gone Pod on Facebook and at ATTWG Pod on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. If you like what we're doing, please subscribe and consider leaving a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. It will help new listeners find us. And the more people that listen, the more chances we have of bringing someone home.
And we'll see you here next week for a brand new episode.
See you next week.
And Then They Were Gone is hosted by Kona Gallagher and Ethan Flick. All research, writing, and editing is done by Kona Gallagher. Theme music is The Stork by Ketsa. Additional music is provided by Kai Engel. And Then They Were Gone is a Little Monster production.
Hey, you can do it!